Tang Siwen had imagined countless scenarios of meeting Bo Muran again, but never had she expected this one. He wore a wrinkled suit that hadn't been ironed, his stubble poorly shaved, dark shadows under his eyes, and a tinge of red showing he just pulled an all-nighter. It looked like he hadn't had a good night's sleep in a long time. Disheveled and haggard, he was completely different from the Bo Muran on screen. Tang Siwen almost suspected he'd been robbed by aliens. When the man spoke, his voice was utterly exhausted, hoarse and broken, yet every word was clear to Tang Siwen. "Miss Tang, 20 million yuan, and you can keep me for 2 years. Tang Siwen felt as if she had been struck by lightning, suddenly feeling that the world had turned surreal. "Wait, are you saying Mr. Bo? Did I hear that right?" Tang Siwen's expression was indescribable. "You want me to keep you? For 2 years?" Bo Muran's expression was calm, and he responded with a nonchalant, His eyes still held the arrogance of a general from his last role, without a trace of consciousness about his keep me request. "So, 20 million, is it for me to give you, or you to give me?" Tang Siwen couldn't help but confirm again. "You give me 20 million, all at once, no installments." Bo Muran paused, finally remembering to explain, "I need the money." Tang Siwen fell silent. She knew Bo Muran needed money now. Maybe after winning enough Best Actor awards, Bo Muran started shifting to behind-the-scenes work. Last year, he began preparing for his directorial debut but recently had disagreements with investors over the script. The investors wanted to insert people into the project, forcefully adding scenes. Knowing Bo Muran's temper, compromise was out of the question. This hadn't blown up online yet, thanks to Bo Muran's reputation holding it down. Tang Siwen, having some insider information, had been worried and thinking of ways to help him without his knowledge. She never expected him to come to her proactively. Tang Siwen felt a bit bitter. That was Bo Muran after all. How could he just say, "Keep me," to a woman for 20 million? If someone else offered more, would he climb over the wall for the difference? Thinking this made Tang Siwen feel even more sour. 20 million is too much. Tang Siwen snorted lightly. 8 million, no more. Deal. The deal was finally settled at 8 million. But she worried that Bo Muran might still need money and seek out other patrons, so she gritted her teeth and transferred him 20 million and 1 yuan. Tang Siwen refused Bo Muran's suggestion of an immediate inspection, found a clean, neat suit from her studio's storage for him to change into, and then directly kicked him out. If I need anything, I'll contact you." Tang Siwen never expected that she would need Bo Muran so soon. The old man's birthday was approaching, and with the new year around the corner, he had announced plans to arrange a matchmaking session for her upon her return. Tang Siwen was fretting about not having an excuse to contact Bo Muran, but this marriage pressure from her grandfather was a godsend. So, Tang Siwen bought the next available ticket back to China. Instead of going home, she went straight to the film set. She took out her phone, repeatedly entering the phone number she had memorized long ago, but she could never muster the courage to dial it. Tang Siwen didn't know what she was afraid of. Was it not knowing what to say first, or was it the fear that he might no longer use this number? She hadn't asked Bo Muran for his current contact information the last time they met. As the one being kept, Bo Muran hadn't felt the need to proactively give his contact details to his patron. The phone number Tang Siwen knew was the one Bo Muran used 7 years ago. Lost in thought, her finger accidentally pressed the call button. She was stunned until she heard the familiar and distant ringtone coming from the other end. The call wasn't answered, but Bo Muran's voice was clear and immediate. "How long have you been standing there?" Tang Siwen was startled. This man had appeared behind her without a sound. Who wouldn't be surprised? She stared blankly at Bo Muran, her mouth opening but not a sound coming out, until he took her hand. "Are you cold? Your outfit isn't suitable for this winter weather." Bo Muran took off his coat and draped it over Tang Siwen's shoulders, then took her hand into his own. He continued talking, her delicate, pale hands in his warm grasp, his long fingers gently rubbing them to warm her. Seemingly feeling it wasn't enough, he brought her hands up and blew warm air onto her icy fingers. Tang Siwen, unused to this kind of intimacy, blushed immediately. Fortunately, it was already dark, and the dim streetlights weren't enough to reveal her embarrassment and awkwardness, allowing her to relax a bit. "Aren't you going to let me in? After all, I am your patron," Tang Siwen muttered softly, trying to change the topic and subtly pull her hand away. However, Bo Muron's grip was uncharacteristically firm. He held her small hand tightly and led her towards the set. "Hey, where are you taking me? This isn't appropriate, is it? You're a big star, pulling and tugging with a young, beautiful woman in a place like this. Aren't you afraid of making headlines tomorrow?" Bo Muron paused, seemingly amused by her self-praise, though the laugh was so brief that Tang Siwen almost thought she had imagined it. "What's inappropriate about it?" Bo Muron said, "Didn't you just say you're my patron?" She had said that very quietly, unlike his brazen behavior. "If it really makes headlines, I'll just say I'm being kept by you. If you abandon me after 2 years, you'll be the heartless one." Tang Siwen was so shocked her eyes nearly popped out. "Let's go, my patron." The hotels around the film set were fully booked, and given their current relationship, Tang Siwen didn't bother to get another room. Instead, she confiscated Bo Muron's room key. After all, she had spent 20 million. Even if it was like throwing money into the water, she wanted to hear a splash. She couldn't let that money go to waste. Listening to the sound of water in the bathroom, Tang Siwen's heart was pounding so loudly it felt like it was in her throat. She began to reflect on how her relationship with Bo Muron had come to this point of financial and physical transaction. When she first met Bo Muron, she was only 17, at an age that her family considered early for romance, but she liked Bo Muron. Even though he was 8 years older, she liked him. The school's art festival had invited Bo Muron as a guest performer, and she happened to be the host. Their first meeting was in the chaotic backstage. While changing into her third dress, her high heel got caught on the tassel of the floor-length gown, and with one step, she fell right into Bo Muron's arms. She regretted for a long time afterward that the cliched TV drama scenario of falling and kissing hadn't happened between her and Bo Muron. Later, during her school year design project, her sister managed to get Bo Muron to be her model. She circled around him, taking measurements, the two of them so close that when she looked up, she could see his sharp, smooth jawline. The man's features were exquisite, like a beautifully carved jade, a masterpiece of nature. Tang Siwen felt a surge of emotion, wanting to do something but slipping before she could act, falling backward. She thought she would fall flat on her back in front of Bo Muron, a scenario so embarrassing it made her despair just thinking about it. However, the anticipated pain didn't come. Instead, she felt a soft touch on her lips as her body regained balance. Bo Muron had saved her, and she finally got to kiss him. Later, she thickened her face, pretending she couldn't find her phone, borrowing his to call herself. The ringtone came from her bag, making her blush under Bo Muron's knowing gaze. After getting Bo Muron's contact information, Tang Siwen became even bolder. Holiday greetings, good morning, and good night texts, she never missed a beat. She always found ways to accidentally run into him, on set, at the TV station, at the airport. It was as if she had a radar specifically for Bo Muron. At 17, Tang Siwen understood that if you liked someone, you had to fight for it. She wasn't afraid of Bo Muron seeing her ambition. On the contrary, she feared not being seen by him at all. Initially, Bo Muron didn't reciprocate. Each time, he would send her back to school and earnestly talk to her about the importance of studying, not skipping classes, and his reluctance to become a creepy older guy preying on a minor. But what Bo Muron didn't know was that his restrained rejections appeared to Tang Siwen as the ultimate act of gentlemanly kindness. Standing on the edge of adulthood, she grew braver in this budding romance, undeterred by setbacks. And then, Tang Siwen shook her head, not wanting to reminisce about the long-gone past. Just then, the sound of the shower stopped. She was so nervous, she forgot to breathe. When the man in a bathrobe walked out of the bathroom and approached her, she still hadn't taken a second breath. The collar of his bathrobe was tightly fastened, revealing only a hint of his smooth, enticing collarbone and nothing more, making him look quite innocent, with no intention of seducing his patron. However, as he walked, the sash of his robe swayed, offering glimpses of his strong, sculpted physique. His damp bangs hung over his forehead, and as he leaned in, a drop of water fell beside her ear. Though it was cold, it felt scalding, almost making her jump. Tang Siwen felt like the whole world had darkened. She sensed a warm touch on her lips and stared blankly at the man so close to her, her body stiff like a marionette. Yuan suddenly pulled away. That fleeting kiss felt more like a polite greeting, without any deeper connection or emotional exchange. It ended with Yuan's simple comment, "You need to breathe." Tang Siwen took deep breaths, finally feeling the world brighten again. She realized she had been so nervous that she had been deprived of oxygen. What a mess. This was far worse than their first kiss 7 years ago. When you're making it so I don't want to act or direct movies anymore, Yuan suddenly said. Tang Siwen's mind lagged behind. What? Making money from you is too easy. I don't have to do anything, and 2 million falls from the sky right onto my head. Yuan chuckled. All right, don't be nervous. Remember to breathe. I just came back to take a shower. The crew is filming night scenes tonight, so I won't be back. You can sleep well. Yuan didn't smile often, but when he did, it was truly captivating. However, this smile, in Tang Siwen's eyes, seemed to mock her nervousness. She had never been able to handle provocation well. Yuan's smile made her uncomfortable all over. Gritting her teeth and summoning her courage, she grabbed his collar and stood on tiptoe to kiss him. Using all her strength, she kissed him for half a minute before finally letting go. Who said you don't have to do anything? Come home with me for the new year. With some time left until the Lunar New Year, Tang Siwen didn't want to go home and be nagged by her extended family, so she decided to settle into Yuan's film crew. As an internationally renowned costume designer with formal training, she found herself working as a wardrobe assistant in a small crew. Surprisingly, she found it quite interesting. Seeing Yuan at work was even more captivating than her memories of him. This man seemed to possess an irresistible charm. Tang Siwen had previously visited Yuan's film set secretly. On camera, he was either aloof and stern or gentle and refined, always wearing a mask of perfection that could captivate even the most critical. But the Yuan now was completely different. Wrapped in a thick military coat, holding a megaphone, he didn't fit words like exquisite or perfect, yet Tang Siwen found herself even more entranced by him. A man who, at the height of his fame, decisively turned to directing had an unshakable tenacity at his core. Tang Siwen couldn't help but wonder, if he had been more resolute about their relationship back then, would things have turned out differently? Siwen, the boxed lunches are here. Come eat while they're hot. Yuan's loud voice through the megaphone shattered her fanciful thoughts. She resigned herself, thinking, fine, this is okay. Every day, he gave her the lean meat from the braised pork, the tender hearts of the mushrooms and greens, and even half of the marinated egg. This life was actually quite good. With good meals, Tang Siwen also slept well. She hadn't moved out of Yuan's room, but Yuan had been sleeping on the sofa for a month. The filming was in its final stages, and Yuan wanted to wrap up before the new year so everyone could go home and have a peaceful holiday. With this goal, everyone was working tirelessly, day and night. Tang Siwen was busy too, following Yuan out early in the morning and staying up late with him. Although the crew members didn't say anything, they were all in the know about their relationship. Perhaps because the crew was so harmonious, there wasn't a single rumor about Yuan online. Tang Siwen even expressed her regret to Yuan, saying, "Director don't you think you've lost your edge? Every day you're with a beautiful girl, yet not a single ripple has been stirred. TSK, looks like your movie can't rely on your fame, better spend more on marketing." Fresh out of the shower, Yuan said nothing and pressed Tang Siwen against the door, kissing her passionately. Amid the steamy atmosphere and mingling breaths, Tang Siwen thought she might not make it out of this. But the kiss abruptly ended. Siwen, if you keep teasing me, I don't mind finishing what we started 7 years ago. His voice was husky, his breath hot against her ear, burning with an intensity that seemed ready to ignite her. He had waited so many years for his little girl to grow up, to stand beside her openly and justifiably. Sometimes, he didn't want to wait any longer. Tang Siwen, a paper tiger, was terrified and weak-kneed, trying to escape. Bo Miran let her go, closing his eyes to calm himself for a few seconds. When he looked at her again, his gaze was inscrutable. Not yet, it wasn't the right time. Tang Siwen was unnerved by his look until she received a call from home urging her to return. Then she finally understood the meaning behind his gaze. Given Bo Miran's status, how could he not be photographed by paparazzi? The reason there hadn't been any rumors must be because the entertainment industry was too deep. The Tang family had strong roots in the film industry and significant influence in media circles. Blocking a bit of gossip was no problem for them. 7 years ago, her family elders had forbidden her from being with this old man, who was 8 years her senior. They used every means necessary to break them up and swiftly sent her abroad. How could they possibly let rumors about her and Bo Miran spread now? What had they said back then? They claimed Bo Miran had impure intentions and ulterior motives for getting close to her, like rescuing a lost girl from a fire pit. Unexpectedly, the same old drama was unfolding again. Back then, they had managed to pull her away, but she still liked Bo Miran. She always had. Tang Siwen often thought, if Bo Miran really had some ulterior motive for approaching her, it would be fine. She just hoped his goal hadn't been achieved yet, so he could approach her again. She had waited for 7 years. 7 years was enough time for the immature, naive girl to grow into the independent, rational woman she was now. It was also enough time for a renowned man to settle his heart and embark on a new journey. Luckily, he had a new scheme. He was approaching her again. Tang Siwen thought, if this was indeed a lie, she was willing to live in this deception. So what? With her own talent and hard-earned money, wasn't she allowed to rent a movie star to go home for the new year? On New Year's Eve, Tang Siwen changed her mind. She didn't want to bring Bo Miran home. She wanted to take him on a vacation to Tahiti instead and properly settle their financial arrangement. After all, she had spent 20 million and 1 yuan to keep this movie star. Why bring him home to be judged by others? She couldn't bear to let anyone else speak ill of him. However, Bo Miran refused. He seemed to look forward to this visit to the Tang family. Tang Siwen felt the blood in her veins cooling down. She pretended to be nonchalant and said, "Director Bo, let me tell you, I'm the most generous person in my family. No one else would want to keep an old man like you who's almost 40. Bo Miran held back his laughter and replied with a simple, His indifferent attitude made Tang Siwen feel frustrated, so she tried to increase her bargaining chips. Last year, I made about 60 million. My schedule for next year is almost full, and I expect to double that. Although it's not a lot, I can still help you make movies. I'm only 24, with a promising future ahead. Keeping you for another 10 years isn't a problem. I understand, dear patron. Bo Miran couldn't help but laugh. He turned his head and kissed her on the cheek. You're the most amazing person in the world. So, can you give me a chance to fulfill your first request? Otherwise, when the 2-year contract ends, how can I ask you to renew it? He looked at her, his eyes shining like stars. Tang Siwen had never been able to refuse his gaze. Back then, he had looked at her like that and casually named a price of 20 million, and she had given it without blinking. Just like now, even though she knew Bo Miran might have some other plot for wanting to spend New Year's at her place, she couldn't refuse him. Even if it meant fighting a tough battle, she was willing to be his armor. To Tang Siwen's surprise, this new year was incredibly harmonious. She didn't know what kind of charm Bo Miran used, but everyone was all smiles. Even her grandpa, who usually nagged about her love life, seemed satisfied. When Bo Miran met the Tang family again, he was no longer the bewildered and helpless man from 7 years ago. He knew very well that they could no longer be obstacles in their relationship. He was no longer the beau Muron who could be brought down by a single cough from the Tang family. 7 years ago, the Tang family's eldest son had described him as a pretty face who relies on his looks, someone with deep scheming and ulterior motives who thought clinging to the Tang family would ensure an easy life. Beau Muron didn't know how to refute that at the time because he had seen many such people. Moreover, he didn't have the power to argue against Tang Deshao's words. It was then that he realized he could only rely on his looks for a few years. The entertainment industry constantly churns out attractive people. Tang Xiwen was too young to understand the outside world. He also realized for the first time that he was an irresponsible person, indulging in fleeting infatuation without thinking about how he could protect his little girl for a lifetime. But now, everything was different. From the moment he stepped into the Tang family again, he carried an unwavering determination and confidence. He wanted to show them that the princess they cherished would be well taken care of by him. People only saw Beau Muron's graceful and elegant demeanor because his industry status no longer required him to flatter anyone. But that didn't mean he couldn't charm people. His well-known good relationships in the industry weren't just luck. When it came to building relationships, no one was his match. Beau Muron's strong social skills left Tang Xiwen feeling powerless. She had been ready for a tough fight, only to find herself hitting a wall of cotton. She spent the days at home in a daze until her studio's secretary called her back to work on the 3rd day of the new year. She realized she had been neglecting her career for too long by staying with Beau Muron. If she didn't get back to work, she wouldn't be able to afford to keep Beau Muron. This thought snapped her out of her daze. Throughout history, there had been countless tales of heroes falling for beauty. Tang Xiwen never thought she would fall into that trap. Determined, she finally dragged Beau Muron to bed on a dark and windy night, and the next morning, she packed her bags and fled back to Paris. Tang Xiwen threw herself into her work. Filmmaking was an expensive endeavor, but what could she do? Beau Muron liked it. If she didn't earn more money, she was afraid she wouldn't be able to support him one day. Time flew by during busy periods. Besides occasional nights spent with Beau Muron, both were engrossed in their own pursuits. In the blink of an eye, summer arrived, and Beau Muron's directorial debut finally premiered. The film was only released domestically, and Tang Xiwen was too busy preparing for autumn and winter events to return home to see it. But Beau Muron didn't leave her with regrets. He brought the film overseas to watch with her. In the dimly lit, enclosed theater, the red velvet sofas were soft and warm. She had seen the scenes on screen from another perspective. The man by her side watching the movie with her was someone she had liked for many, many years and finally obtained, albeit in a narrow sense. But regardless, for her, this was an incredibly wonderful experience. Is it good? Don't cry. Beau Muron handed her a handkerchief. Admittedly, it was truly a masterpiece. Beau Muron had given everyone a perfect answer. Even Tang Xiwen, who had originally come with a dating mindset, was so immersed in it that she couldn't stop crying. Sobi. When this scene was being shot, I was right there watching. Why is the final effect so heartbreaking? Tang Xiwen wiped her tears and mucus with Beau Muron's handkerchief. Her vision blurred, and on the big screen appeared a familiar yet unfamiliar figure. Familiar, because this man was sitting beside her right now. Even if he had turned to ashes, she would still recognize him. But unfamiliar, because she had never seen him look so old. Yes, old, like he was 60, like he was 80, with white hair, wrinkles all over his face, and wearing a pair of reading glasses properly. Even his voice was hoarse and weathered. Xiwen. The 80-year-old Beau Muron still called her that. Tang Xiwen's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't mentally prepared for what was about to happen, but seeing Beau Muron like this made her heart ache so much she couldn't breathe. He had always been dazzling to her. She had never thought that someday he would also face the dimming and falling. Am I ugly like this? The old Beau Muron on the screen chuckled softly. I'm a bit older than you, destined to age before you. And you, forever an 18-year-old fairy, what should we do? I'm afraid 30 years from now, I won't be worthy of you anymore. Tang Xiwen cried and laughed, grabbing Beau Muron's hand and biting it. The old Bo Muran on the screen kept talking, but Tang Siwen felt like she couldn't hear a word. She didn't know what Bo Muran intended. Did he want to reject her? Did he want to end their relationship? The movie had just premiered. There was still a long time until the profit sharing. Was he going to cut ties while paying her? Tang Siwen's heart pounded violently, causing her chest to ache. Her tears blurred her vision uncontrollably, but through the haze, she suddenly saw the man beside her stand up and approach her. "I'm sorry that I wasn't with you during your best times," Bo Muran said. "But I hope that from now on, all my time can be made beautiful because of you." His eyes shimmered like countless stars reflected in them. "Miss Tang Siwen, would you be willing to be with me forever? Through poverty and wealth, sickness and health, nothing will ever separate us." The real Bo Muran's voice was deep and rich, close to her ear. The Bo Muran in the movie's voice was weary and heavy, coming from the surround sound system in the theater. Two completely different voices overlapped and merged, both saying the same thing. "Siwen, marry me, please?" Tang Siwen didn't know where Bo Muran got that pigeon egg ring from when he proposed to her. With the investors pulling out, he poured his entire fortune into the film. He even went so far as to jokingly seek sponsorship from her. In such a situation, what could he use to buy a multi-million-dollar diamond ring? It wasn't until the box office settlement of Bo Muran's film that her assistant informed her of a significant surplus income. She learned that the initial $20 million had been considered by Bo Muran as her investment in the film, which ended up earning her a hefty profit. For the first time, Tang Siwen seriously pondered a question. Could Bo Muran, who had accumulated so much over the years, really be powerless just because an investor withdrew? She wasn't naive. Her lack of previous consideration stemmed from not deliberately thinking in that direction. The facts before her were clear, and the truth wasn't hard to guess. Bo Muran jokingly sought sponsorship from her simply because the opportunity presented itself. Back then, her elders at home feared she would fall into premature love and bad influence, and they wanted to crush her short-lived puppy love in the bud. Their methods, though infuriating, were relatively mild. But towards Bo Muran, a stranger, they probably wouldn't have been so polite. 7 years passed. She reminisced desperately while he pushed forward relentlessly. Fortunately, after the long and divergent paths, they finally reunited. The distant stars that had once separated them were now finally within reach. Things were fine just as they were. He was in her dreams and the first person she saw upon waking. In a half-dream state, Bo Muran unconsciously hugged the adorable figure beside him. As he drifted in and out of sleep, memories of the past 7 years flashed through his mind like a fleeting glimpse. He ventured into filmmaking, pursued directorial studies, made investments, tried new things, and challenged himself constantly, achieving success in everything except one thing. Only Tang Siwen lingered in his heart, a spirit that danced on his conscience, making him feel guilty and indebted. He thought the day was near when he wouldn't have to keep her hidden in his heart anymore, when he could hold her in the palm of his hand. He finally reached a point where he could stand shoulder to shoulder with her, where her choices wouldn't be criticized or questioned by family, and where external pressures wouldn't hinder them anymore. When a person grows strong enough, no difficulty can hold them back. A slight rustling sound near his ear stirred Bo Muran, but he didn't open his eyes. He just felt a light movement beside him. With a clunk, Tang Siwen jumped out of bed, her small steps running out of the bedroom. Soon, she returned, holding a bank card in her hand. "Here, 20 million. Tang Siwen confidently slapped the card on Bo Muran's chest. Seeing his bewildered expression, she smirked and said, "You did well, my patron. I've decided to keep sponsoring you for another 2 years." Bo Muran chuckled softly, pulling Tang Siwen back onto the bed in one smooth motion. Taking charge, he hovered over her. "My patron, there's still one thing missing."